Well, thanks for coming in. Congratulations on the book, your career, the movie. Things must be going pretty nicely for you these days.
Things are going pretty well, I have to say.
That's great. Well, listen, let's start off. I want to ask you, do you consider yourself more of a foodie or a writer?
I think I'm a writer more than I am a foodie per se. I actually kind of hate that word, foodie.
That's what I hear. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I love food, obviously. I love to eat and I love to cook. And food for me is always going to be a subject. But for me, food is the metaphor. Food is the prism through which I'm writing about all the other things that interest me. So.
And then if you think of yourself as a writer, do you think of yourself as a blogger? Because that's really how you came to fame, at least. Do you call yourself a blogger, or is that demeaning?
Oh, no, it's not demeaning at all. It's just that's not what I do anymore. I consider myself right now a person who blogs rather than a blogger. Okay. Because, when I started in 2002, obviously it was a medium that was in its infancy. And it was a much easier thing to do back in the day. There were a few thousand blogs in the world, and I happened to be one of them by accident, which was great for me, and I was in the right time in the right place. But nowadays, blogging, it's a profession. It's a full-time job, and the people who call themselves bloggers are, the rigor, the discipline, the will that it takes to keep a real blog in this day and age is tremendous.
To back up for your sort of your life story, the reason it's the most brilliant concept I can imagine. I mean, I have no interest in food, but when I remember reading the article in the New York Times about you, and I thought, oh my God, what an ingenious idea. I mean, it sounded like such a perfect concept. Can you talk to us about why you started? How did this come about, and why did it come about?
Sure. Back in 2002, I was 29 years old, and I was in a secretarial job that was really sort of extraordinarily soul-sucking, and it was the latest in a series of temp jobs that I had held since I'd moved to New York. That would have been 7 years before. So I moved to New York with these big plans of being an actress or a writer, and all of that had seemed to have fizzled. And I was working this job, and I just felt like there was nothing happening in my life that was fulfilling. I was going nowhere. I was sort of on this highway to long-term secretarial, the bleached hair and the menthol cigarettes and the despair. But I'd always loved to, all through, since I was a young woman, I'd loved to cook, and mastering the art of French cooking had been this sort of totemic object in my life. I didn't cook out of it, but I loved it. Yeah. And on the other hand, I'd always wanted to write and felt like I had no discipline and no subject. So mastering became the subject, and I was going to cook my way through it, and I was going to write about it through this crazy new blogging technology that I didn't understand, and that was going to be my structure for the year, and it was going to give me a piece of my life back at a time when I really felt like I had nothing to keep for me. I was putting it all out there for this job that I couldn't stand, and for all of my emotional life was not being lived for myself. So this was just a way. All it was there was nothing rational about it. There was no big plan. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to cook my way through this 40-year-old cookbook, and then Nora Ephron's going to make a movie. That was not my thinking.
It wasn't your road to fame.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was simply, I have to do this for myself to kind of keep myself sane. And it happened, and that's what I did. I just decided I'm going to cook through this book. It's 524 recipes. I'm going to do it in a year, and somehow something maybe will come out of that, which came to be, actually.
Absolutely. Now, the great thing about this story is that, you start off with small expectations, and it blossomed into this huge phenomenon that kept getting bigger, and now, that couldn't get any bigger right now. You've got this major movie with Amy Adams playing you and Meryl Streep playing Julia Child. But I'd like to back up a bit about the role Julia Child sort of played both for you as you're starting off on your project, but also when you catch word that Julia Child, as successful as you are with this project, she's not exactly taken with what you're doing. Talk a bit about your relationship to Julia Child before she ever heard of you, and then post hearing of you.
Well, when I started the project, I knew, and this is maybe a little idiosyncratic, maybe not the way a lot of people came to know Julia, but I had never seen one of her shows. I had never seen But when I started the project, I'd never seen a single episode of The French Chef. I had never seen her television work, which for many years was what she was most known for. All I had was the book. But the book expresses much of the personality, I think, expresses much of the personality that's present in her shows. I mean, there's, even though it's a pretty formal book, it's just infused with her personality, with this sort of, you know, she exhorts you and challenges you and dares you and encourages, and she's just this great, you know, wonderful, encouraging voice, and I was so taken with it. She's got that voice, and she's got that, you know, force of personality, and she gets inside you. But the, I don't know, this is sort of a corny theory, but I feel like the Julia Child that gets inside each individual, each one's a little bit different. It's like snowflakes. It's like little Julia Child snowflakes. And
Sure.
and some of them are, you know, they're all a little different. So if you run into someone whose Julia Child is different than yours, you can like, people get very protective. No, she wasn't like that. She was like this.
Yeah.
And so when, you know, when I heard that Julia was unimpressed or discontent with what I had done, of course, at first it was completely devastating. When you spend a year doing something that's such a tribute to someone who you feel like who's changed your life and who you have so much gratitude for and so much respect for, and to have her not see it in that way, or to not understand the emotional, you know, what went into it for you. Yes, of course. I mean, having your hero say, is horrible. But, you know, all you can do, instead, what I've sort of satisfied myself with is that my Julia Child is cool with me, and I know what I was doing, and I know that it was coming from a place of tremendous love and respect and gratitude. So
Yeah.
I'm happy.